Can I get everyone up? Can I get everyone up? This is the freestyle portion of my talk. Come on. Okay. Okay, everyone can sit down now. So actually, I don't want to disappoint you guys. My talk isn't about unlocking happiness, like it was unlocking magic, like Radhika's excellent talk. Nor is it about how good I am at dancing, although that's true as well. I started from humble beginnings. So I was born in a small town, rural town in southern China, pretty close to Shanghai called Jingxian. And when I was 2, I immigrated to the United States with my family, and I was raised in a small, sunny, suburban town in Southern California, about an hour outside LA, called Redlands. Now, I had a happy and a peaceful childhood, but there was a problem. I was bored. There was nothing to do in Redlands. And so when it came time to apply for colleges, I wanted to experience something different. I was sick of living an hour away from a great city, and I wanted to live in a great city, so I applied only to schools on the East Coast, and I was very lucky to get accepted into Harvard. And when I started at Harvard my fall of 2010, which was 4 years ago, I decided to enroll in a class kind of haphazardly called 35S, Movement and Meaning, Dance, Culture, and Identity in the 20th Century. It's kind of just a fancy way of saying I'm taking a dance class, I'm getting credit for it, so not a bad deal. And it was my chill class for this semester. It was me, another guy, Akshay, and 13 girls. So not a bad way to start off college. Every single week, we would spend an hour in the dance studio. One week, we did African tribal dance. We tried ballet, which was very difficult. We did some hip-hop dancing. Halfway through the semester, our instructor sat us down and said, you guys should start thinking about your final projects. This is a pass-fail class, but you could write a paper about dance, maybe film yourself doing some original choreography. But I wasn't interested in either of these things. No, I had spent way too much time the summer before my freshman year on YouTube watching flash mob videos, and all I wanted to do was start a flash mob. So this isn't something I could do alone, so I pitched the idea to my classmates. They loved it, and somehow we turned all of our individual final projects into a group final project. So we picked a song, we did some choreography, recruited over 100 people and trained them. It was crazy. I ended up spending more time on this pass-fail final project than I did on all of my graded classes combined. But it was worth it because of the chance to dance in this place. In one of our meetings, someone suggested, why don't we dance in Annenberg Dining Hall? Now, Annenberg Dining Hall is the dining hall for Harvard freshmen, and we eat all of our meals there. People say it looks like Hogwarts. And I thought, what better stage, what bigger audience than this place? There was another problem. I didn't realize that Annenberg is a historic site. And so when we sat down with Harvard administration, they said no. But we were persistent. We kept asking, we put together a petition letter, and finally, we got the green light. This is what happened next.
In Annenberg, a freshman seminar class organized a flash mob dance at 12:20 p.m., and it all started with one dancer.
It's freshman seminar at 36. Okay, so I wanted to stop there because I'm embarrassed watching, first of all, watching myself speak in general, but especially my freshman year self. Reflecting back on this experience, I learned 2 things. The first is that I really peaked freshman year. It was all downhill from there. The second is that those 4 minutes freshman fall changed the way I thought about social change. And when I first came to Harvard, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to make a difference. I was an idealist. I thought I could come in, learn the skills I needed to learn, pack in the knowledge I needed to know, and get shipped off to change the world. Very quickly, I realized that the reality is much more complicated. ending climate change, eradicating malaria, solving income inequality. These are problems mired in entrenched elites and apathetic public, fundamental ideological divide. And as I learn more about these problems, I begin to feel more and more cynical. At times, I felt completely powerless in the face of such insurmountable challenges. What could I do? There's a reason why I asked the question, what can I do? Harvard has a tradition of excellence. And when we talked about success there, we often talked about it in terms of individual accolades. 8 US presidents, 62 living billionaires, 150 Nobel laureates. But starting a flash mob freshman year taught me to ask the question, what can we do? Now, don't get me wrong, solving income inequality and starting a flash mob, in many ways, these are incomparable. But at their core, they share a similarity. Neither are things that an individual does, nor are they things that a great mass of people does. No, both start with a small, creative minority. Anthropologist Margaret Mead put it best. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. When I came to this simple and powerful realization, I started looking to history at all of these times when the world was changing the fastest for the better, and I saw the power of creative minorities at work, precisely in those places when I had previously only seen great individuals. And one of these instances of history speeding up comes from our nation's founding. And our founding father, who understood the power of creative minorities best, was Benjamin Franklin. A lot of us know about Benjamin Franklin's individual accolades. US ambassador to France, researcher of electricity, creator of a number of different civic and public institutions that didn't really exist in 1750. Fire station, police department, library, the University of the University of Pennsylvania. But few people know about the junto, the creative minority behind Ben Franklin. When Ben Franklin was 21, he brought together a group of 12 people, his friends and acquaintances around Philadelphia. Every Friday, the junto would meet and discuss politics, current events, the books they were reading. Now, this group started off as no more than Ben Franklin's friends and acquaintances, but it ended up becoming a lifelong collective that amplified the impact of Franklin and all of the rest of the members. And in fact, many of the civic and public institutions that were created during this time period and that Franklin was involved in came out of the junto. So one example is the public library, the Philadelphia Public Library. In one junto meeting, Ben Franklin put up the idea, well, we all have our private book collections, but why don't we put them together? And that way we can, share them and things like that. And another junto member said, but what if we did this idea for everyone? A more modern example of history speeding up, change coming quickly, comes from the consumer internet revolution of the past 10 or 15 years. And the face of that revolution, after the death of the late Steve Jobs, as Radhika was talking about, is billionaire, inventor, entrepreneur Elon Musk. Many of us know Elon Musk as simultaneously the co-founder and CEO of electric car company Tesla and aerospace company SpaceX. Musk is also the modern-day inspiration for the depiction of Tony Stark in the Iron Man movies. But few people know about the creative minority behind Elon Musk, the PayPal mafia. Now, in his early days, Musk was the co-founder and at one point CEO of PayPal, the payments company. In 2002, when PayPal sold to eBay for just over $1 billion, the co-founders and early employees, Musk, Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Reid Hoffman, a few others, they could have gone their separate ways, their pockets flush with cash. But instead, they came together, and they thought, how can we build a collective that accelerates the future through technology? They started co-founding each other's companies, investing in each other's companies, advising each other on their different ventures. In 2002, after the dot-com bubble, tech was in a crisis. But through the efforts of the PayPal mafia, tons of billion-dollar companies, great companies, have come from this group and ushered in a new renaissance in tech. Companies such as LinkedIn and Yelp, YouTube and Palantir, Tesla and SpaceX, and the list goes on and on. Now, these two examples are near and dear to my heart because after taking this freshman seminar on dance, I realized I couldn't possibly major in something like that. So I decided to major in government. And I was particularly interested in how we can leverage technology to innovate and reimagine our public institutions. And the two circles, the communities where I spent the most time were the politicos and the tech people. Ben Franklin's junto, Elon Musk's PayPal mafia. And now I'm going to be starting my first full-time job in August in San Francisco, working on a company called the Minerva Project, which is trying to build a top liberal arts university for the 21st century, reimagining higher education at the high ends. But as I looked deeper at these different fields, I realized that creative minorities were at work not just in tech or in politics or in education, but they were at work everywhere, in every field that you can imagine, every perspective that you're interested in. Whether it's philosophy, there's a group called the Vienna Circle from the 1920s, German and Austrian philosophers who came together and advanced logical positivism. No idea what that means. Or a group of Canadian artists a little bit later in the 20th century who advanced, they're called the Group of Seven, who advanced landscape painting in Canada. Think about those areas in which you're passionate about, those areas in which you want to change the world. And chances are, the places when change is happening the fastest, both now and historically in those places, you'll see creative minorities at work. And the question becomes, how do we join these creative minorities? How do we form them? And the answer is, you already have them. We just may not think about them in these terms. Think about your deepest and most authentic relationships. Think about the communities that you engage yourself in, communities like this one. These are the latent relationships and networks that underlie creative minorities. Remember, Ben Franklin's junto was no more than his acquaintances. Elon Musk's PayPal mafia started out as no more than his coworkers. So how do we turn these latent relationships and networks into these creative minorities? Well, this is something I'm still sort of thinking about, and I'm going to take with me to San Francisco for the next stage of my life, but I have just a couple ideas that I want to share. The first is a common purpose or thread that holds these groups together. And the common purpose or thread doesn't have to be a project that you're working on together. It doesn't have to be a flash mob or, in the case of PayPal, a company. In fact, Ben Franklin's junto started out as a group for mutual self-improvement, and through that, the betterment of the community. So as long as there's a thread there that holds you together, that's the basis for community. The second thing is adversity. PayPal, in its early days, was struggling as a company. They faced financial regulation, consumer fraud, and they were down in the dumps for years before they finally became successful and sold to eBay. And on a much smaller scale and more personally, there were times in the flash mob process when we didn't know if we could get Annenberg Dining Hall, and I personally had way too much pride to do it without being in that venue. So I want to leave you with this. Think about those areas in which you're passionate about, the ways that you want to change the world. And think about the relationships and the communities that you've already formed or you're just starting to form, maybe in these few days. And think about how you can cultivate your own creative minorities. Together, we can change the world for the better.